For 27 years, my family consistently forgot my birthday, so I decided to throw a grand celebration and exclude them all. If my family excels at one thing, it's neglecting to remember my special day. Not just skipping gifts or forgetting to sing happy birthday, but entirely overlooking the occasion year after year. Growing up in a family of 5 in Cleveland, birthdays were chaotic events. My younger brother, Derek, and older sister, Carly, always had spectacular celebrations. One year, Derek had a space-themed party with a rocket-shaped cake and a magician. For Carly's Sweet 16, my parents rented a banquet hall and brought in a DJ. My birthdays, on the other hand, were much quieter, if they even happened at all. When I was 8, Derek had a pirate-themed party in the backyard. The neighborhood kids came in little pirate hats, swinging foam swords and hunting for treasure. The cake was an enormous ship, complete with edible sails and a chocolate anchor. It was so extravagant that I thought, wow, I wonder what they'll do for my birthday. I shouldn't have gotten my hopes up. 2 months later, on my birthday, all I got was a single cupcake from my aunt, dropped off on her way home from work. It wasn't even a flavor I liked. Still, I smiled, blew out the candle, and pretended I was fine. At least that year, I got something. By the time I became a teenager, I stopped asking for birthday parties. My parents always had the same excuses. We're too busy, or money's tight this year. Funny how those reasons never seemed to apply to Derek or Carly. When Derek turned 10, he had a bouncy castle and a professional clown. On my 10th, my mom grabbed a last-minute cake from the grocery store, and we ate it in the kitchen after dinner. It wasn't just about the cake or the parties, it was the principle. They always made time for my siblings, put in the effort, and celebrated them. For me, I was an afterthought. At 16, I didn't even bother asking for a celebration. I figured they'd forget as usual, and I wasn't wrong. That same year, Carly's graduation party was like a mini-wedding. There were catered appetizers, a live band, and relatives I hadn't seen in years. She wore a gorgeous dress, and everyone fawned over her. I even helped set up, though no one noticed. When I turned 18, my birthday came and went in silence. My parents were too preoccupied with work to acknowledge it. Meanwhile, that same weekend, my dad drove Derek to a basketball tournament 3 hours away. I stayed home, scrolling through my phone, pretending it didn't bother me. By the time I hit 21, I had no expectations. My parents claimed they were buried under work deadlines, but somehow my dad still found time to take Derek out for pizza to celebrate his game win. That night, I sat alone. No card, no cake, not even a text message. Last year, when I turned 27, I decided to give them one last chance. I dropped hints weeks ahead of time, even outright reminding them, "Don't forget, it's my birthday in a couple of weeks." My mom responded, "Don't worry, Laura. We'll make sure we do something this time." I let myself believe her, just this once. When the day arrived, the house was silent. No calls, no texts, nothing. I spent the evening scrolling through social media, pretending I didn't care. Exactly 1 week later, they threw Derek a party. Not just any party, a catered dinner with a custom cake and professional photos. I sat at the table that night, forcing a smile, choking on how invisible I felt. When I brought it up later, my mom brushed it off. "It's been such a stressful time, Laura. You know we didn't mean to forget." My dad shrugged. "You're an adult now. Birthdays aren't that big of a deal." Derek laughed and added, "Maybe next year." That night, I made a decision. I was done. Done waiting for them to care, done hoping for a miracle, done pretending their neglect didn't hurt. If they wouldn't celebrate me, I'd celebrate myself. That's when the idea struck. I didn't just want a birthday party. I wanted the birthday I had always dreamed of. Elegant, extravagant, and unapologetically mine. But I had one rule. No family. No parents with their excuses. No Derek stealing the spotlight. No Carly rolling her eyes and calling me dramatic. This time, things were going to be different. I stayed up late that night, scribbling ideas in my notebook. I knew it would take time, effort, and money, but I didn't care. I wanted a celebration that would be unforgettable, a reminder to myself and everyone else that I mattered. I decided on a masquerade ball, something mysterious and glamorous, like a scene out of a movie. The next day, I started looking at venues. For the first time in years, I felt excited about my birthday. There was no dread, no bracing for disappointment, no waiting for someone else to step up. This time, I was in charge. What I didn't anticipate was how much chaos my decision to celebrate myself would stir up. Planning my own birthday party was both thrilling and nerve-wracking. For years, I'd let my family's indifference dictate how I felt about my birthday, and, in many ways, how I felt about myself. But now, I was putting myself first. No more waiting for someone to care or hoping for validation. It was all up to me, and for once, that felt empowering. The first step was finding the perfect venue. I didn't want anything generic or reminiscent of the cookie-cutter events my family always threw. After days of searching, I found the ideal spot, a downtown loft with high ceilings, exposed brick walls, and huge windows overlooking the city skyline. It had a modern yet cozy vibe, and the venue included catering and DJ services. It was a bit expensive, but I told myself it was worth it. This wasn't just going to be a birthday party, it was going to be a statement. The same day I toured the venue, I signed the contract. Walking out, I was hit with a surge of excitement. For the first time, I could truly picture it. Friends dressed in formal attire, soft lights illuminating the space, music filling the air as people danced. It would be everything I'd ever wanted, and more. Choosing the theme was simple. I'd always been captivated by the allure of masquerade balls, the elegance, the mystery, and the dramatic flair. It was the perfect way to create something extraordinary and unforgettable. Once I decided, I dove into Pinterest for inspiration. Rich emerald and gold color schemes, custom-designed masks, elaborate centerpieces, and a photo backdrop draped in fairy lights and velvet curtains. The next challenge was the guest list. This part was tricky. I wanted to keep it small, just the people who had truly supported me through life's ups and downs. That meant no family, not my parents, Derek or Carly. None of the people who had consistently treated me like an afterthought. Instead, I focused on the friends who had always been there for me. There was Emma and Rachel, my rock-solid friends from college, Melanie, my co-worker who had my back during tough days at work, a few high school friends who still checked in, even after I moved across town. These were the people who cared, who made the effort. When I sent out the invitations, a small pang of guilt hit me for not including my family. But the more I thought about it, the more justified I felt. This wasn't about revenge or making them feel bad. It was about finally celebrating me, something they'd never taken the time to do. I kept all the planning off social media to avoid any accidental leaks. My mom had a knack for guilt-tripping whenever she felt left out, and I didn't want her trying to worm her way into this event. As far as they knew, everything in my life was business as usual. Still, keeping it all under wraps wasn't easy. My mom began making passive-aggressive comments about how I didn't have time for family anymore. Derek was more direct. One evening, while I was at their house for dinner, he hovered over my shoulder as I texted Emma about the cake design. "What's that about?" he asked, trying to peek at my screen. "Work," I lied, slipping my phone into my pocket. He didn't look convinced, but dropped the subject. Speaking of the cake, it was turning out to be a showstopper. I worked with a bakery known for extravagant designs, and we created a 3-tier masterpiece that embodied the masquerade theme. The bottom layer featured intricate gold and black mask patterns, the middle was wrapped in edible lace, and the top was adorned with a sugar sculpture of a mask. It was pricier than I'd planned, but when I saw the sketches, I couldn't resist. Of course, not everything went smoothly. 3 weeks into planning, the venue called to say they'd accidentally double-booked the space and had to cancel my reservation. Panic set in. I paced my apartment, frantically calling every venue I could find online. Just when I was about to give up, I found an even better option. A rooftop terrace with string lights, heaters for the evening chill, and a breathtaking view of the same skyline. The owner even threw in a few extras as an apology for the last-minute booking. With that crisis resolved, I shifted my focus back to the details. I ordered personalized invitations, sealed with wax and handwritten notes. Emma volunteered to craft custom masks for the guests, and Rachel connected me with someone who could get discounted party favors. Another friend offered to build a photo backdrop, complete with fairy lights and velvet drapery. Every item crossed off my to-do list brought me closer to the reality of this party. For the first time in years, I wasn't dreading my birthday. I was excited. I knew my family would find out eventually, and the thought of their reaction twisted my stomach. But I pushed those worries aside. This wasn't about them. It was about me, and I wasn't going to let their opinions spoil it. As the plans came together, I teased vague hints on social media. Nothing specific, just enough to spark curiosity. Posts like, "Something big is coming," and "Save the date for a special night," flooded with comments from friends asking what I was planning. The secrecy only added to the excitement, and their energy fueled my motivation. For once, I felt like I was doing something worth celebrating. I even splurged on a dress. I'd never spent more than $50 on an outfit before, but this time, I decided to treat myself. I found the perfect gown at a boutique I'd only admired from the window, a floor-length emerald dress with detailed beadwork that shimmered beautifully. The moment I put it on, I felt like royalty. Everything was coming together better than I had imagined. The venue, the decorations, the guest list, it was all falling into place. Still, the thought of my family finding out lingered in the back of my mind. But I reminded myself that this was my celebration, and I wasn't going to let them ruin it. As the weeks passed, the party plans started feeling real. Every detail, from the custom masks to the elegant decorations, was coming together perfectly. Emma and Rachel were as invested as I was, which made the process even more enjoyable. Each brainstorming session and finalized decision added to my confidence that this party would be everything I'd dreamed of. Still, I couldn't shake a tiny knot of anxiety. I knew it was only a matter of time before my family discovered what I was up to. The first test came when the guest list unexpectedly expanded. Initially, I had planned for about 30 close friends and colleagues, but as word spread, more people started asking if they could bring plus ones or join in. "Laura, you have to let me come," Megan, a co-worker, begged. This wasn't just going to be a party. It was going to make a bold statement. I sent out the invitations shortly after finalizing the guest list. Gorgeous, gold-embossed cards with wax seals and handwritten notes. Each one felt deeply personal, a reflection of how much effort I was putting into this event. As I mailed them out, I couldn't help but feel a mix of nerves and anticipation, wondering if my guests would love the night as much as I hoped. Meanwhile, my family began noticing I was unusually busy. My mom made a few remarks during a phone call about how I hadn't been around much lately. "We miss you, Laura," she said. "The family just doesn't feel complete without you." I wanted to laugh. Where was this energy during all the birthdays they ignored? But instead, I politely explained that work had been hectic. Derek, on the other hand, was far less subtle. He often hovered near me during visits, sneaking glances at my phone, or asking what was keeping me so occupied. One evening, I caught him scrolling through my messages after I'd left my phone on the counter. "Derek, what are you doing?" I snapped, grabbing it from him. "Relax," he said with a grin. "Just curious about what's got you so busy." I didn't respond, choosing instead to keep my phone on me at all times after that. Despite these hiccups, the party plans were coming together beautifully. The rooftop terrace I'd secured as a last-minute replacement for my original venue turned out to be even better. Its string lights and stunning views of the city skyline added a magical touch that was bound to impress everyone. Emma and Rachel were lifesavers throughout the process. Emma curated the perfect playlist, blending upbeat tracks with atmospheric music that matched the masquerade theme. Rachel, ever the creative genius, handcrafted stunning masks for the guests. Each one was unique, adorned with metallic accents, glittering beads, and elegant feathers. "We're going to look like royalty," Rachel said, holding up a silver and blue mask she'd just finished. "Royalty with better taste," I joked, laughing. The cake was another highlight. The bakery had been hard at work on the three-tiered masterpiece. The bottom layer featured intricate black and gold mask designs. The middle was wrapped in edible lace, and the top boasted a sugar sculpture of a mask. Every update from the bakery made me more excited. But just as things seemed to be falling into place, the bakery called with bad news. Their lead decorator had fallen ill, and they weren't sure they could finish the cake in time. I panicked, scrambling to find a backup bakery. After a few stressful days, they managed to pull through and assured me the cake would be ready as planned. Not everything went smoothly, though. While finalizing decorations one day, a friend accidentally posted an Instagram story from my apartment. It was just a picture of some fairy lights and masks we'd been working on, but she tagged me in it. By the time I noticed, the damage had been done. My phone was flooded with notifications, including a series of texts from Derek. "What's this about a party?" he wrote. "Why wasn't I invited?" I ignored him at first, hoping he'd drop it, but by lunchtime, he was calling me non-stop. When I finally picked up, he got straight to the point. "I saw the Instagram post," he said, his tone equal parts curious and annoyed. "What are you planning?" "It's a private event," I replied calmly. "For friends, not family?" he pressed. "That's right," I said firmly. Derek went quiet for a moment before his tone shifted. "Mom and Dad aren't going to like this." By the end of the day, my parents were involved. They left voicemails ranging from guilt-ridden to outright angry. When I finally answered, my mom's voice trembled with emotion. "How could you exclude your own family from something like this?" she demanded. "It's not about you," I said, keeping my tone steady. "This is something I'm doing for myself." My dad jumped in, his voice sharp. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us?" That sentence made frustration bubble up inside me. Everything they'd done for me? Like forgetting every birthday I'd ever had? Like always putting Derek and Carly first? I wanted to yell, but I held back. "I'm not doing this to hurt you," I said firmly. "I'm doing this because I've spent years feeling invisible in this family, and I'm done with it." My mom's response was predictable. "You're blowing things out of proportion, Laura. We've always done our best." "Your best?" My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. "You forgot my 18th, my 21st, and my 27th birthdays. Meanwhile, Derek gets a rooftop party, Carly gets a DJ and a banquet hall, and I get a grocery store cake, if I'm lucky. So no, this isn't about you. For once, it's about me." The call ended with my mom crying and my dad muttering something about me being ungrateful. My hands were shaking when I hung up, but for the first time, I felt an odd sense of relief. I had stood my ground. No more guilt trips, no more excuses. This was my moment, and I wasn't going to let them take it from me. The night of the party finally arrived, and it was like a dream come true. After months of planning, I was ready to celebrate the way I'd always imagined. The rooftop terrace was breathtaking. String lights crisscrossed overhead, casting a warm, golden glow. Tables were draped in emerald green and gold, with centerpieces featuring feathers, candles, and decorative masks that added an air of elegance and mystery. The city skyline sparkled in the background, providing a perfect backdrop for the evening. I arrived early with Emma and Rachel to ensure every detail was perfect. The caterers set up food stations, the DJ tested the sound system, and the professional photographer I'd hired was already capturing shots of the setup. As Rachel adjusted a centerpiece, she turned to me and said, "Laura, this is amazing. You've really outdone yourself." A blend of pride and disbelief filled me as I smiled. "I couldn't have done it without you," I told my friends. Guests began arriving around 7 p.m., all dressed to impress. The masquerade theme was a hit, with attendees donning elegant formal wear and masks that added a mysterious flair to the evening. Some masks were adorned with beads and feathers, while others kept things simple yet refined. As I greeted everyone near the entrance, a deep sense of joy and validation grew within me. These were the people who truly cared, who showed up because they wanted to, not out of obligation. By 8 p.m., the rooftop was alive with energy. The DJ played a perfect mix of upbeat and sophisticated tracks, setting the tone for the night. Guests mingled, laughed, and admired the stunning decorations, while the photographer roamed the space, capturing candid moments. One of my co-workers pulled me aside, her face glowing with excitement. "Laura, this is the best party I've been to in years," she gushed. "You really know how to throw an event." Her words hit me deeply. For so long, I'd felt overlooked and undervalued. But here I was, surrounded by people who made me feel the exact opposite. After about an hour, Emma nudged me and handed me a glass of champagne. "Time for a speech," she said with a playful grin. I groaned, but let her guide me to the center of the room. The DJ turned the music down, and everyone's eyes were suddenly on me. My heart pounded as I raised my glass. "Thank you all for being here tonight," I began, my voice trembling slightly. "This party means more to me than I can express. For years, I let myself believe I wasn't worth celebrating. But looking around this room, I see just how wrong I was. You've shown me I'm surrounded by love and support, and I'm so grateful for that. Tonight is about joy, laughter, and celebration, and I couldn't have done it without you. So, cheers to all of us." The room erupted in applause. Clinking glasses with the friends closest to me, I felt a warmth I hadn't experienced in years. Just when I thought the evening couldn't get better, Rachel and Emma surprised me with something unexpected: a live band. It was their gift to me, and as the band started playing, the crowd cheered and clapped. Their energy was electric, and soon the dance floor was packed. Even I couldn't resist joining in. For a brief moment, it felt like I was in a movie, with everything aligning perfectly. Then came the cake. At 9:30 p.m., the caterers wheeled it out, and an audible gasp rippled through the crowd. It was even more stunning than I'd imagined. The intricate gold and black mask designs, the edible lace, and the sugar mask sculpture on top were flawless. As I cut the first slice, a friend playfully tried to swipe the top tier, making everyone burst into laughter. It was a small moment, but it felt so genuine and joyful. For the first time, my birthday truly felt celebrated. Of course, the night wasn't without drama. Around 10 p.m., one of the security guards approached me with a serious expression. "Miss Laura, your parents and brother are at the entrance," he said. "They're demanding to be let in." My heart sank. I'd known this might happen, but I wasn't entirely ready for it. "What did they say?" I asked. "They claim they have a right to be here because they're family," he replied. Taking a deep breath to steady myself, I said, "Politely tell them this is a private event, and they're not on the guest list." The guard nodded and walked away. But moments later, I heard shouting from outside. My mom's voice, shrill with anger, cut through the night. Ungrateful! After everything we've done for her, she shuts us out like this. My dad wasn't far behind, yelling about how I was embarrassing the family. Derek chimed in, accusing me of being selfish and tearing the family apart. Some guests noticed the commotion and peeked toward the entrance, but I stayed calm, refusing to let them ruin my night. I asked the security team to contact the building's management, who eventually threatened to involve the police if they didn't leave. After a few more minutes of yelling, they finally stormed off. As they left, my mom shouted, "You'll regret this!" I stood still for a moment, letting the adrenaline surge through me. A friend came over and wrapped me in a reassuring hug. "Don't let them ruin this for you," she said softly. "This party is amazing, and so are you." Her words grounded me. I smiled, thanked her, and returned to the dance floor. The DJ turned the music back up, and the energy in the room quickly bounced back. The rest of the night was everything I'd dreamed of. We danced until our feet ached, posed for photos against the skyline, and shared endless laughs. A close friend surprised me with a scrapbook filled with photos and notes from our years of friendship, while another gifted me a custom journal engraved with a quote about self-love. As the night wound down and guests began saying their goodbyes, I stood on the rooftop, gazing out at the glittering city lights. For the first time, I felt completely at peace. This night wasn't just about celebrating my birthday. It was about reclaiming a part of myself I'd lost over the years. No matter what fallout awaited, I knew one thing for sure. This had been the best decision I'd ever made. The next morning, my phone buzzed non-stop. At first, it was friends sharing photos and videos from the party. Seeing posts with captions like, "Best Party of the Year," and "Had an amazing time at Laura's Masquerade Bash," made me smile. But mixed in with the joy were the messages I'd been dreading, angry texts from my family. It started with my mom, sending a barrage of messages filled with guilt and frustration. "I can't believe you would go behind our backs like this. Throwing such an elaborate party while excluding your family? It's humiliating. How could you treat us this way after all we've done for you?" My mom's messages were dripping with guilt and frustration. My dad's texts, however, took a more calculated tone, accusing me of being selfish, immature, and ungrateful. Derek, as always, leaned into the drama, calling me heartless and accusing me of tearing the family apart. I didn't reply. There was no point. None of them were genuinely trying to understand my perspective. They were only interested in making me feel guilty for finally prioritizing myself. By the afternoon, things escalated. Derek posted a long rant on Facebook, portraying me as the villain. He claimed I'd betrayed the family, disrespected our parents, and created unnecessary conflict. I didn't even need to respond. My friends, and even some distant relatives, quickly jumped in to defend me. They pointed out the years of favoritism my family had shown Derek and Carly, and how this party was likely the first time I'd ever done something solely for myself. The comment section turned into a full-blown debate, with people taking sides. By the end of the day, Derek had deleted the post, but the damage was already done. What surprised me the most were the private messages I received afterward. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years reached out to offer apologies. One cousin, Samantha, sent a heartfelt note admitting she'd noticed the favoritism for years. "I always saw how Derek and Carly were treated like golden children," she wrote. "I can't imagine how hard that must have been for you. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself." Her words struck a chord. For so long, I'd felt alone in noticing the imbalance within our family. Hearing someone else acknowledge it validated everything I'd been feeling. A few days later, I received an email from my parents. While it was framed as an apology, it was anything but. They spoke about how families go through ups and downs and claimed it was my duty to hold us together. They accused me of being vindictive and attention-seeking and ended the email with a thinly veiled threat. If I didn't make amends, they might reconsider providing me with emotional or financial support. I read it twice, exhaled deeply, and responded briefly. Thank you for your email. My decision remains unchanged. I wasn't going to negotiate the boundary I'd set. What hurt the most was discovering how far they were willing to go to protect their image. A week later, Samantha told me they had hosted a family gathering where they claimed I was mentally unstable and acting out of spite. They painted themselves as victims, conveniently omitting the years of neglect and favoritism that led to this moment. I didn't engage. Arguing would only fuel their narrative. Instead, I focused on the outpouring of support from those who truly mattered. My friends rallied around me, sending messages of encouragement and reminding me I'd done the right thing. Even co-workers who'd attended the party stopped by to tell me how much fun they'd had and how impressive the event was. You deserve every bit of happiness, Laura, one co-worker told me. Don't let anyone take that from you. At that moment, I realized this wasn't just about the party anymore. It was about reclaiming my voice, my worth, and my place in the world. About a week after the party, Derek called me unexpectedly. For a second, I thought he might be ready to apologize. His tone was calm, almost rehearsed, as he said he wanted to clear the air. But as the conversation progressed, it became clear he wasn't apologizing. He was fishing for information. So, what's your plan now? He asked casually. Are you going to Mom's birthday next month? Hosting any other events soon? I kept my answers vague until he slipped up, mentioning how my parents had been telling relatives I was unstable to justify their actions. Hearing it stung, though it didn't surprise me. Their reputation had always been more important than their relationship with me. After that call, I knew I needed to fully cut ties for my peace of mind. I muted the family group chat, ignored their emails, and distanced myself from anyone trying to pull me into their drama. That same week, while cleaning out my closet, I stumbled across an old diary from my teenage years. Flipping through it, I found an entry about a birthday they'd completely forgotten. I'd written about how I stayed up late, hoping someone would remember, only to go to bed feeling invisible. Reading those words brought tears to my eyes, but also gave me clarity. This wasn't about one party. It was about years of feeling unseen and unimportant. A close friend suggested I write a letter to my parents, not to send, but to help process my emotions. So I did. I poured years of frustration, hurt, and anger onto the page. By the time I finished, I felt lighter. I don't know if my family will ever understand why I made this choice. Maybe they'll keep twisting the story to suit their narrative. But that's not my problem anymore. The party was more than just a birthday celebration. It was a turning point. It reminded me that I deserve to be surrounded by people who value me, who show up for me, and who genuinely care. As I move forward, I know there will be more moments like this, more boundaries to set, and more decisions to make. But for the first time in years, I feel like I'm truly in control of my life. And that, above all else, is worth celebrating.